Hi everyone, and welcome to Worth the Calories, a Great British Bake Off podcast. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Catherine.
This week we're talking about Pastry Week.
We are.
But to start us off, you've done a bake from a previous week.
Yes, I decided to do George's cherry marzipan biscuits from German Week. As quite frankly, I was not going to do baklava. And as much as I'm tempted to do a big raised hot water crust pie, if I was going to, it would be a proper traditional pork pie. And the recipe for that wasn't up there.
No.
Nor do we have the right to re-encase, and quite frankly, our baking cupboard's a bit full already.
We have a lot of equipment now.
Yeah.
Good. So tell me about the biscuits. What are they?
That's a good question. What are they? They're a little bit like a Viennese whirl type biscuit, but I think I found them a bit harder, or maybe I just made them wrong. I don't know. I found them a bit harder. So, there was a lot of icing sugar. Sorry, I'm being very distracted by a cat.
Walking on a keyboard.
Walking on a keyboard just behind me. So yes, so basically there were three parts to making this. There was making the filling, which was cherry jam from scratch, some marzipan, and then the surprise twist at the end was you stick some kirsch in to loosen your marzipan and then whop the cherry jam into both. So what you've got in the middle is a big marzipan cherry jam booze mixture.
So it's not layers of marzipan and jam.
No, because I was expecting it to be layers of marzipan and jam. So I was quite concerned that the marzipan I was making was quite so sticky.
Right.
Turns out that was not a concern I needed
so
to have.
So you could soften it.
Because I was just gonna almost dissolve it into a much looser mixture with the kirsch anyway.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the middle bit. The biscuit itself, essentially, you were making a pipeable biscuit mixture.
Right.
I was very surprised by how much corn flour there was in there. I'm not quite sure what that does from a. Maybe it just makes it all hold together a lot better.
With heat, it helps it maintain stability.
Yeah. Because actually, I do feel that for the type of biscuit it is, having piped it into circles and baked it, it's hardened up into quite a robust biscuit.
Yeah.
And I think that's the corn flour. But I mean, if it wasn't that robust, they'd be falling all over the place every time we tried to eat them. But they do hold together quite nicely.
You're comparing it to a Viennese whirl. The part of the point of a Viennese whirl is they're incredibly crumbly, really buttery biscuits.
Yeah, so it's like, it's sort of, to me, it feels like a similar sort of way of making a biscuit to a Viennese whirl. But, I mean, the piping pattern is irrelevant, so there's no sort of chilling of the dough before you bake it.
Oh, that's interesting.
The piping is literally just to...
So it's expecting it to spread.
It's expecting it to spread. In fact, the instructions were like, you must make sure you leave at least 2 centimetres between each of them. I think the piping is purely to get the circles... get this very, very loose and sticky mixture onto a baking sheet in biscuit type shapes. Yeah. It's interesting. Would I make it again? Don't know. Maybe on a weekend when I have more energy. Because I feel like I was lulled into a false sense of security because the recipe says 30 minutes of hands-on time and 20 minutes of baking. I'm pretty sure I was in the kitchen for 2.5 hours.
Possibly.
And it's things like, like the making of the jam. I was using the temperature gun type thermometer. And it kept telling me the temperature was going down. I'm like, I don't understand how it could be going down. I'm boiling and boiling this jam. Why are you saying that the temperature is now 60 degrees? I'm aiming for 105. So after a while, I'm just like, this jam has to be done by now. I've been boiling away at it forever. And then, the marzipan was dead easy, apart from my unwarranted fear at how sticky it was. If I'd realised, if I'd read to the end of the recipe like everyone's supposed to do before they start, I might have taken less time over the marzipan and not worried about it being so much. But overall, it was quite good fun. What I feel good about is I've never really done much piping.
You're always very hesitant when it comes up.
And I use the sort of piping gun tool that we've got. And I would not... I mean, cleaning it's a pain. But but I would be less hesitant to do that sort of piping. I mean, when we got to the end of the biscuit and it was like, put melted chocolate into a small piping bag, I was like, no, not doing that. I just kind of loaded a skewer with the melted chocolate and laid it across 3 times to make sort of 3 slightly less elegant looking lines. Because there was no way I was going to spend my time putting melted chocolate into a piping bag at that point.
What if you can get a little piping gun for little amounts of things?
Maybe. I should have got those. I'm sure. Do we have some icing tubes? Oh no, it's food colouring. That wouldn't have worked.
Anyway.
But yeah. Anyway,
good.
Overall, I'm pleased I made them.
Mm-hmm.
Having like when I was making them, I'd forgotten they were German wheat biscuits. I thought they were just wheat biscuits, and then a bit into them, I was like, oh yes, this is German wheat biscuits.
Yeah.
And if you read the blurb, it suggests that they are a replacement for after dinner chocolates. Almost a bit like a petit four, which I think if I'd made them all as small as I was supposed to, instead of doing some rather ginormous versions, that would work.
Yeah.
But yes. What did you think? You had 2?
Is there? Yeah, I had 2. So, clearly they're really good. They are very tasty. The layer in the middle is surprising. Yeah. It's not quite jam. It's not quite very set jam. And you can tell there's something else going on with it.
I agree. I don't know what I was expecting in the middle, and I don't know if I've got my proportions wrong, because, I just whopped all of the jam into it. Maybe I should have put less jam in with the marzipan. I don't know.
I wonder if a layer of marzipan and jam might have worked, but that's more what we would expect in a biscuit. That's what we're used to with, like, jammy dodgers and stuff. Yeah. But the almonds in it, ground almonds.
Ground almonds.
Are they in the biscuit or just in the marzipan?
Both. Both.
It's the one thing that stands out as a flavour from it, where I expected the cherry and everything to stand out, but the almond really comes across. I wonder if almonds not in the biscuit might have and make it a pure biscuit.
Because in fact, it wasn't just so. What was actually I'd forgotten about that bit. You had to take 55 grams of the marzipan that you made and put it into the biscuit mixture.
Right. Okay.
And then you whisked that into the biscuit mixture.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, they are very tasty, and especially so I had one of the larger ones. And once you've sort of eaten the outside bit, the middle bit is a very soft, crumbly biscuit. But because they are so thin, certainly the edges have cooked quite crisply.
Yes.
And on the smaller ones, that means all of them is quite crisp. Yeah. So you can see more sort of biscuit on the larger ones. You putting it in that context of serving it with coffee. Yes, I could completely see it in that space. Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to make them again.
No, I don't
because I think there's other things that we make that I like better. Mm-hmm. I am not going to throw away all of that excess mixture, the middle, because we've got loads of it, loads of the boozy cherry marzipan jam. Is it appropriate to have boozy cherry marzipan jam in your porridge before work in the morning?
No. Or have it on toast as your supper. Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think they're very nice. I think it's made a decent quantity that we will be able to share with friends and visitors. Yeah, very nice. So this week on the show was Pastry Week.
Yep.
So we started off with Chouxnuts, choux pastry doughnuts, which is an idea.
It is.
Definite idea. Having now made them, I can see it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I don't also see why. Is, I think, the missing explanation for me.
Because you can.
Because it's a challenge. Why not?
Well, there was that whole thing for a while of alternative donuts, wasn't there?
Because they're not far from a yum-yum.
What's a yum-yum?
You know, the sort of long
donuts
that are a bit like a choux-nut.
Yeah.
They're not too dissimilar to that. I think the main thing with them is making choux pastry is a bit of a faff.
Yes.
You know, and you sort of get it because you can make large quantities of it and do lots and lots of puff pastries. No, not puff pastries. Profiteroles, for instance. And various other things that you can do with choux. Eclairs. So. The glaze was fine. I quite enjoyed making the glaze because it was fine and easy and quick. And then you dip the Chouxnuts in the glaze.
Yeah.
Now, choux pastry isn't sweet. It's a fairly plain pastry, which is part of the point. You can then load it up with other stuff. It's a delivery mechanism. This obviously doesn't have that, so then you put the sweet glaze on top, and that delivers all the flavour for you. Yeah. Which was fine. And I think they were quite tasty when we had them. And then, like an hour later, they are soggy, because they've had this wet glaze on top of them. And you would have to make them and serve them really quickly, or keep them very fresh and then make the glaze and dip them and serve them. But
they were significantly nicer when we ate them on the same day.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I polished off the extra ones we had this morning. But yeah, they're not a bacon then taken to work 2 days later type.
Yeah, it really surprised me. And it shouldn't have surprised me, but it surprised me that they feel so disposable.
I wonder if that's something that fried bread products have in common. Because a fresh donut that you buy off the street tastes lovely there and then. Not so grand the next day.
They can go a bit stodgy, can't they? I suspect they won't. If I'd been glazing an actual donut in that way, it would have been better and kept better. So,
yeah.
Fine. But it gave us a chance to try out a new deep fat fryer.
This is indeed.
So I think it's been quite a success. I think it was actually very easy, which was good. And it's making me want to go back over the other Bake Off recipes of yore.
Yeah. What else have we... Oh, it wasn't a Bake Off thing that we did deep fat in the pan, was it? It was...
What's the thing? We have done a couple of things.
Chicken karage.
It was for Bake Off when I did the jam and cream donuts.
Yes.
That was for Bake Off. But then also we did some karage last year, beginning of this year, at some point in the last period that's all mixed together.
Yep.
Which we've learned, like, okay, we can do this, but actually deep fat fryer would make it easier.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, absolutely. I am all for you using a deep fat fryer.
It was interesting doing this. So this is Giuseppe's recipe, which he calls Bellissima Chouxnuts, because he's using 00 flour, which is an Italian flour type.
Yep.
Obviously,
pasta making flour.
I just use plain flour because it's the same.
Yeah.
Largely, and there was something in the glaze. There was another ingredient that I was like, oh yeah, that's actually something you would use more in Italian cooking, so I can see that.
Okay.
So that was interesting. I think they might have had a bigger piping thing than I had. I had all sorts of trouble with the piping, and it actually the best ones ended up when I did 2 rings effectively.
Yeah.
But because I'd had a delay in the middle where I ran out of an ingredient, I had to pop out to the shop to get more ingredient, and then I'd put it all in a piping bag, and then the piping bag split, so I had to put it in the piping gun.
Yeah. Traumatic piping gun.
I suspect I lost some air out of the choux pastry itself, so I think that might have caused the smaller ones not to rise, and the ones that then I did 2 rings to have extra air, because the rings create extra air. Fine. So it's fine.
I can see. I mean, not that we'll ever do this, but we might, but I could see if we had some people around with small children for a party, I could see having lots of dips of melted chocolate and jams and things like that, and doing straight lengths of them, a bit like churros.
A bit like a churro, yeah.
Yeah, and making it a sort of choose your poison.
Yeah.
For an extra flavour.
You're describing a chocolate fountain, aren't you?
Yeah,
basically. And we're not having a chocolate fountain.
Why
or it's just me sat there with a
mug. Yeah, basically I'm describing something that you'd use with a chocolate fountain.
Yeah, I find it a really interesting challenge because it is, not many people have heard of them. And I think they are just an elaborate thing people are doing for a bit of fun.
Yes.
And I don't think anyone did anything that I went, oh, that was really,
I think you did well. They were very tasty. Well done. We shall never make them again.
We shall never make them again. But even the people on the show, I think they all
like, what is
did
this?
them. Some of them came out better, some of them came out worse, but by and large it was down to flavours.
Giuseppe in his heart and his Italian heart was like, what is this travesty?
Well, absolutely. Because even Amanda and George, who didn't do well this week, I think it was the flavours that did for them.
Yeah,
more than the cooking.
Christelle had the hardest time, and I think that was her frying, wasn't it? She didn't fry them for long enough.
Yeah. So, they don't go hard enough, and then they go soggy as soon as you put... Because there is presumably some time between making them and then them eating them, so that'll affect it.
Absolutely.
Right. The technical. Baklava. A little more baklava. The origin story of Matthew and baklava is that it's mentioned in a song in Aladdin. So anytime anyone says baklava to me, I go, have a little more baklava.
About a little more baklava.
Oh, fair enough.
From the song Friend Like Me.
Okay.
Anyway. Yeah, we weren't going to attempt this. I know we always want to do the technicals. The technicals are the things. But not only is this making baklava, it's a really elaborate one.
Yeah. I don't think I've got the patience or the eye for detail.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to it. You know, they're not an easy thing anyway. And I feel like it's showing that this show has been going on so long. They're now pulling in things because it didn't feel like traditional baklava that I've been served or bought or...
Yeah. I mean, it looked beautiful. And I guess the thing that they were testing them on is, can you produce phyllo pastry consistently?
That's fair.
And do you know what? I think they all did.
Well, this was the great thing about it, and why perhaps, you know, sometimes good technicals are about make it possible for everyone to do it.
Yeah.
They really had to scrutinise to see the differences between them. And I'm so here for that. Great.
Absolutely. Because I think the difference was people's ability to execute the pattern rather than people's ability to execute the actual bake or the pastry.
Yeah, which I think if they hadn't gotten the pattern right but everything else was spot on, they might still have come first.
Yes.
It's just there is also someone who is a good baker and is meticulous and gets things like that right.
Yes. But yeah.
I liked how surprised Christelle was at getting second.
Oh, she's so cute.
Because she's not done well in the technicals so far.
Yes.
So well on her.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is another good thing about this season, this series of it, that everyone there this week, I feel like was a good baker and was doing good stuff. And, you know, things went against them in some places and went for them in other places. But I feel like after 6 episodes, or, you know, 5 before this, we're at a point of anyone could do well in this.
Absolutely.
And I want everyone to do well. There's no one, I think, hanging on.
Yeah.
We might discuss that in a minute, but...
Yeah.
Everyone's competent. Everyone's coming in with a good attitude to it.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting series.
Yeah.
So the final challenge was to make a terrine pie.
One day, I want to make a terrine pie.
Yeah?
I do not want to make it in the bake-off tent under that amount of pressure.
No.
Because...
And to have to, you know, make it look beautiful on the outside, but when you cut through it, it's also beautiful inside.
Yeah.
I mean... It's terrine.
It's also the timing thing as well. That is not a bake that you do from start to finish in 4.5 hours.
No.
That's the sort of thing you'll make the filling. You'll make, you know, it's the sort of thing that might be done over a couple of days normally.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But they had 4.5 hours to do it.
They did, and some of them did an amazing job.
And that's where you can point out and say, okay, the challenge was not so much because some did come off very, very well.
Yeah.
There were times when we watch it and we go, okay, no one came out of this well. Or those who didn't push it far enough, perhaps. Yeah. But I think, so, you know, there were 2 that we're thinking of, Amanda and George, who did very badly in that round.
Yep.
But that was because they were late getting it in. And they both said, I was delayed to this point, and that then set everything else back.
And you've got to me, I'm kind of, obviously I'm not there, but part of me thinks what I would want to do is have contingency plans.
Yeah.
And my real deadline is get that thing in the oven in enough time to get it out in one piece. Because there's no point faffing around with your decorations at an earlier stage if they're all just going to crumble away because you haven't baked the pie enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've seen bakers get through to, like, the semi-finals.
Yeah.
On being very, very capable, but never quite bringing it all together in one. But the particular difficulty was George obviously put it in late.
Yep.
But then that sausage did not seem to be cooked all the way through.
Right, that's actually like food poisoning.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
Yeah.
Amanda, who's went in late, which meant it wasn't cool enough when she tried to turn it out and it started tearing and falling apart.
I think she lost her head when she was taking the tin off. And just, Which one of them went home? I can't actually remember.
Well, this is the interesting thing. There has been a lot of chat about perhaps George should have gone. Perhaps it shouldn't have been Amanda because he seemed to do worse. Again, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
And it comes down to on the day, and it comes down to flavours and what they do across all the challenges. Amanda went home, but I think it was really close between them.
Yeah.
So.
Because didn't they say that the tastes of Amanda's fillings weren't that great either?
Yeah.
And that often is, and that's something we can't really judge from her.
No.
Because I remember, I think that's how Laura stayed in the year that she was in the final.
really good at
because she
flavour.
had really good at flavour. But it's like, well, we can't see that. We can just see the
Yeah,
scruffiness. Whereas in this one, like Amanda's looked great. But yeah, if all the meats were really dry, apart from the pate, then it's both unattractive and doesn't make a pleasant eat.
Yep.
Whereas perhaps they saw that George's could have been a very tasty pie had it not been about to poison them.
Yeah. And it's... Because flavour is such a core thing.
Yes.
It could look awful, but as long as it, if it doesn't have that, and if it looks
Yes.
great and doesn't taste good, as I think Jurgen's looked really good and was really impressive, but actually didn't taste good when they were eating it, or didn't taste as good as others.
Yeah.
So, I can agree and accept and like that being an important part of it.
Yeah.
Like you say, very hard for us to judge. However, it is really hard for us to watch at home and accept and take.
Yes.
And George has also been in trouble the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So-
if going into that week, George was my prediction.
Okay.
I cannot actually remember how they both did in the Chouxnuts, Quanuts, whatever they are nuts.
Amanda made sweet and savoury. George made classic. And like you, I can't remember. So let's not.
Yeah, let's not even
Yeah,
try.
Yeah, no, fine. So I'm expecting him to probably go as well, because when you look back over it, Amanda's always been mentioned as a possible going home for several weeks too.
Yes.
Not the last week, but weeks before that. So,
Yes. So Caramel Week might not be a good week for George.
no, possibly so. But this is the thing with all of them, because you've got Jurgen and Giuseppe, who are clearly very good.
Yep.
And everyone else, to varying degrees, is also very good. But it doesn't always come together for them. Or
Yes.
it comes together for the other two
Yeah.
better. When we've got Chigs, Lizzie, Christelle, and
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
If one of them kicked on from here and started bringing it all together every time, getting it on time, getting the flavours right, you'd say, yeah, I can see them going into the final.
Yeah.
But I can also see Giuseppe or Jurgen having a bad week
Mm.
and just it not coming for them because it's just been so consistent.
I mean, Jurgen is very, very competent.
Mm-hmm.
He's not been shining quite as much the last couple of weeks as he did the initial week.
No, we've seen this most series. There is
Yeah.
someone who is steps forward to begin with, and then everyone catches them up really quickly.
Yeah.
Which good. I want it. I want it to
Absolutely.
be a competition.
Giuseppe has maintained his quality. I think
Mm-hmm.
Christelle is one to watch.
I want Christelle to do really well.
Yes.
She's probably the one I'm sort of rooting for, but I also know when I root for people, they go home the next week. So
Fair
I'm
enough.
not saying it.
Don't do it.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
Her little cottage pie.
So it looks so
Looked
good.
incredible.
It looked amazing. Yeah.
I'm trying to go up to it for a minute. Okay. Yeah, and that's part of the thing. It looked really good inside. Obviously, really good
Yeah.
when sliced. Tasted really good. As a curry pie is not an easy thing to put
No.
together to look that good. But then she went over and above with those decorations on the outside.
And that's why I'm like, actually, clearly, this is an achievable challenge if you approach it in the right way.
Yeah, because even if she had served it as here is a pie, when you slice it, it's going to be pretty inside.
Yes.
That would have been fine. She probably still would have won.
Yeah.
But she went over and above.
Yeah.
And it all came together and she delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
good on
looked
her.
really good.
And I loved her on the phone at the end.
So
with everyone
cute.
screaming, being
So
excited.
nice.
Terrific.
So nice.
Yeah, you want to see that stuff. You want excited people.
Absolutely. Yay.
Caramel week.
You're going to be standing over a pan watching sugar and water melt
We really
again.
are, aren't we? Just crikey.
I do love caramel as a flavour, though, so I hope there's something something fun some things fun for us to make this next weekend. Or away this next weekend.
We're away the next weekend, so we might just be doing an episode and then some baking at
fair
another
enough.
time. But it looked like there was some honeycomb in there.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it had that sort of thing going on. Maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember what else was in there. We do have the heat gloves that we bought last year
Good.
because of this show, so
Yes.
we can stop ourselves from burning. Hopefully this time, because I was reminded of. I think dipping that cornucopia that I did that I had to dip in caramel to stick
and
together.
You kept burning your fingers.
And I remember doing that with the glaze. So
Yeah.
now we've got heat gloves. So we'll see how we do.
Yeah. I need to use them.
Yes, you do. Good.
Super.
Yeah, ugh. Yeah, I think I said it last week or a couple of weeks ago. I'm really enjoying this series.
Good series.
I think they've got a good group of contestants together, and the challenges are Well, at least 2 out of 3 each week. I'm getting
Yeah.
behind and enjoying.
Absolutely, me too.
Mm.
As long as they don't have them over a fire pit in the
Well.
final episode, I'm a happy bunny with the challenges.
You just worry, don't you? There's something stupid coming.
My what memories on Facebook today came up with your post from the final where it was over the fire pit. So that must have been it. And the word travesty was in it like 5 times.
Yeah. Ridiculous. And you hope they've pulled back with some of that sort of feedback.
Exactly.
Fine, we'll see. So going into week 7 for Caramel Week next week.
Yeah.
Do tell us what you thought. If you are baking along with us as well, if you're doing some of these each week, do make sure you tag at Eloquent Gushing on Instagram. And you can find...
Me?
Yep.
Kendo Cat on Instagram.
Also posting some lovely biscuits and various things being made.
Indeedy.
Right, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
This is me recording over here.
This is me, eating a biscuit.
It's a good outtake.